I can't take it personal when people feel like, "Oh, AI is this," because a lot of people are just scared of what they don't know. But you should be more scared of people like Elon Musk, to be quite honest. Like,
Always.
you should be more scared of someone whose, like, net worth is 400 billion plus, and you're still trying to rub 2 pennies together to go get a soda from the corner store, and you still can't get your short film that only cost you, like, $20,000 to film. You're out here begging to get to festivals and doing things. We're, like, out here trying to do our best, greatest work, and we got somebody whose net worth is $400 billion who could literally stop poverty tomorrow. Like, those are the things people should be afraid of, not a computer.
I'm Kale from Cinestruct,
And I'm Alexander Bergman.
and this is Cinema Revolution. We're going to talk about today AI and how filmmakers are using AI in the real world. And if you're wondering why Alex sounds that way, Alex, tell us why you've got that great accent.
I'm feeling a little revolutionary lately. And here at Cinema Revolution, we're all about paving a path for a better future, forged by the filmmakers, because we can only trust ourselves to do it. Um, so I'm so happy to have Tedra and John here today to bring their perspectives on our changing environment and what we can do to fight back.
Yes, beautifully said, Alex. And you mentioned Tidra and John. So let me do some quick introductions and then we'll bring them on. So we have Tidra, also known as TT the artist. She is a director, a music artist, and producer. Her debut feature film, Dark City Beneath the Beat, made its streaming debut on Netflix and is now available to watch on Tubi. And her latest series, Denim, is premiering this year at South by Southwest 2025. Welcome, Tidra. Thanks so much for joining us.
So happy to be here.
We have John Carstarphen, director and DP of hundreds of short films, including documentaries and independent features. John was the winner of the prestigious Ken Burns Fellowship, and this current documentary film, The Last Philadelphia, is currently making its way through the festival circuit. Thank you so much for joining us, John.
So glad to be here. Thank you, Kale.
Right. So to kick things off, I mentioned we're going to talk about AI and how folks, filmmakers, talented filmmakers, are using AI in the field right now. To kick things off, um, I want to hear how each of you are using AI, and I'll go ahead and start with Tija. Why don't you tell us how you're using AI right now?
Okay, so AI has really been a great new addition to my creative toolbox in that it's really helped me with my workflow overall. So, as a director, often you have to present a visual concept, and you're creating treatments and mood boards. And a lot of times previously, I've had to rely on like stock photos, Pinterest, Google searches, and sometimes it's not as easy to like convey what you actually see in your head, which is a lot of times is really unique and original innovations and imagery. And now with the power of AI, I'm not only able to show, more of what I see in my head as a director visually, but it's left so much room for me to also create proof of concepts, short films. Even with audio, you're able to utilize audio and give people more of a entry point to your mind and how it works. And um, I found it so useful in a lot of my process because a lot of times, even as an independent filmmaker, you don't always have the budget to go out there and shoot. You don't always have the resources to get a crew. And it's so cool now because the AI space is opening up so much in the filmmaking world that you legit can build a name for yourself in AI filmmaking. And then that can also cross over to other spaces in the film industry. So I've really been using the tool in every capacity in which you can use it, from assisting with script writing, assisting with outlining, pitch decks, image making, video making, visualizers. It's been really great. And I think a lot of people confuse AI with just like oh, it's just prompting and you just put something in and then it just kicks it out. No, with everything in different art spaces, there are levels. So AI has expanded so much too, where you can actually train your AI to create things that are more in that space that you're trying to convey or the aesthetic you're trying to convey. So it's not just as simple as downloading an app and typing in, a prompt and then that's just what it is and that's where it ends. It's a whole world, a whole community, and a whole language, to be quite honest, that has developed in the AI space. So I found it very useful in a lot of my creative workflows now, and it's really great for me.
That's super cool. And there's a lot to dig into there. So we're gonna, yeah, we have a lot to chew on. John, how are you using AI in your work?
Well, I actually am planning to use AI in future films from now on. I mean, that's how committed I am to AI. A lot of people are terrified of AI in this industry because they're worried about their jobs. They're worried about, losing control, basically. In my last film, The Last Philadelphia, which is a documentary, I use AI extensively for visuals. It's a historical documentary. So, I have to supplement the audio with visuals somehow. And I tried animation. I'm pretty good at 3D animation, but I'm no expert. And then about a year ago, AI really started making leaps and bounds, and I jumped over to Learn AI, learned about all the models and the video models, and so how to do some of the coding. And it's brilliant. It saved my film. It really did. So
Mm.
I use AI for everything. I did the voiceover. I changed my voice using AI. I did visuals. I did video interspersed with regular documentary footage. And so I think AI it's without question, it's the future of the industry. And I plan to use it a lot more. The only thing I don't use AI for is anything that requires writing. I feel that as a writer, which I do, I write all my films. That's the human part of filmmaking to me that can't and shouldn't be replaced. I've dabbled with AI writing software, ChatGPT, and some of these others, and it just completely loses and disconnects with the humanity, in my opinion, of artistry. So I do not have scripts done through AI. I do all the like production, post production, and some of that stuff, but never writing.
Interesting.
So I do before I have a question, but Alex, do you have a question you want to pop in first?
No, um, other than, uh, it seems that you really do have to drive the machine, and pick your boundaries. And with John, he has the boundary of writing, which I fully agree with as a writer. Um, I'm sure other people find their ways around that and find ways to make that type of writing work. Um, but yeah, I think the more you can drive the machine, the more you can have your own input over it, and most essentially bringing your humanity to the table. That's the only way you can make good stuff with AI, in my estimation.
Well, I think that a lot of people, as I mentioned before, they're terrified of AI because of its potential. But I hear a lot of artists, I see a lot of artists online in the forums, as TT mentioned, um, talking about AI. It is a huge community. And but there are a lot of people outside of that community that attack AI because they say, "Oh, they're stealing my work. They're stealing my photos. They're scraping Google, and that's how they train their models." And there's a big like cancellation effort in progress when it comes to AI. I mean, just look at the Oscars this year. there's that one film, it's not Anora, it's another one,
It's
Brutalist.
The
The
Brutalist.
Brutalist, where they tweaked some of the sound using AI, and people are up in arms over it. But I think people completely miss the point when they go down that rabbit hole with AI. That's not how AI works. And it's, that idea that they're stealing stuff from other artists, that's not what artists should be getting upset about.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just to add to the conversation, I find it very interesting because everything is programmed. Everything has to be programmed. Even when you open Photoshop, the brushes that you used are programmed to emulate real live brushes that a painter would use. So, in some sense, that is an artificial brush that you're then using to create. Otherwise, you'd still have to be taking brush and pen to paper. When you download Procreate, what do you think is happening when you're able to quickly animate frame by frame in Procreate, and I think that the lines get so blurred because there's, people who feel like they're a purist or fundamentalist when it comes to art, but not realizing that with art comes evolution. It comes evolution with the tools that we use. And I actually have been in situations where I've shared AI visuals on my social media and then I get random comments, one or two like AI is trash. You should try hiring a real artist. And I'm like, I'll reply, oh, actually, I have a bachelor's in fine arts. I'm actually technically a trained artist. I can draw. I have an understanding of all the elements and actually mediums of art from computer graphics illustration to oil painting, acrylic, pastels, color pencil, charcoal. So I always find it interesting that people are so quick to like leave comments like that when you don't know who you're actually talking to. And what I found is that again, it's just an evolution of new tools and a lot of people who don't understand it have their perspectives on it. Like even with writing, like if you look at someone like me, I'm a film director now writer. I've never really had I'm learning writing in real time, script writing. And even the apps that we're paying for have AI systems built into them. When you download Final Draft and you're utilizing it for the first time, you can literally click character and it's helping you format your document. Whereas in the past, you would have had to use Word and actually known the elements to script writing. Now, myself, I go out and I do, extra research on like the actual art of storytelling because I do think 2 things could be true at the same time, like, you should learn where things come from, you should know where things come from, but I'm also, like, experimenting, so on one hand, I'm like, I have these scripts that I've written from my heart, and I'm pitching them, and I'm pitching them, and no one's I'm not getting the grants, I'm not getting the labs, and then now I'm, like, testing out, what if I take my scripts and then I prompt and ask AI to give me notes, or what if I actually prompt AI to give me a script idea based on what a grant or a lab is asking for that may totally be out of the genre I would typically do, but can AI present some ideas for me that are idea starters and build out from there. So, I'm actually experimenting a lot with the script writing side of AI, even if it's, like, coming down and making quick 60-second to 2-minute short concepts, voiceovers. I've actually used AI as voiceovers, scripts where I prompt AI to give me a voiceover script. I feed it what I want the theme to be about, it gives me the prompt, and then I actually go back in and edit it so it does feel more like it's coming from a real place, and then take that prompt and take those words and put it into 11 Labs and have it do the voiceover, and then build my imagery around that voiceover. So now I'm, like, knowing exactly what type of, like, image prompting that I wanna get from, like, the, image to video apps that I'm using. So yeah, it's so many ways, but I just think people need to know that things are going to evolve, and these are just, like, new tools that are being introduced to us. So, I understand all the different, point of views around it.
I was just talking to a fairly well-known filmmaker. I'm not going to mention his name, and he's kind of dabbling in AI, and he's a script writer by profession. He's also directed some kind of semi-major films, but he said that he gave his script, his newest script, to AI, just fed it into some AI program to get notes. And the notes he got, he said, were better than any studio notes he's ever received.
I
Wow.
believe that.
So AI
Yeah,
can
that's not
do
surprising.
amazing things. Now, it didn't write the script for him, but it gave him kind of a third eye. And just to your point, Tedra, I think there's use in that kind of application. But if I could get political for a minute, I think that one of the things that filmmakers and artists who jump into AI really need to be concerned about are things like Elon Musk wanting to spend $97 billion to buy OpenAI. OpenAI was the original platform that created all these wonderful video models and graphic models that we now have. So if somebody like that, in my opinion, gets a hold of it, it's going to be closed AI. I mean, and that's the thing that artists need to really pay attention to. Also, Adobe Firefly just released their video model. Now, so when a company like Adobe gets into this game and says, okay, we have our own video model and it looks pretty good,
Mhm.
AI is here to stay. It's here to stay. But if you're on somebody else's platform, they run the show. It's their rules, not yours. And I'm already beginning to see on platforms like Runway and Kling and C Art and some of these other major AI platforms that they're already starting to clamp down on what you can do. Sex, politics, violence is starting to become a no-no. Whereas 2 years ago, you could do anything. You could put anything up on any platform, create an AI model, image, video, but the quality has gotten so good and so competitive with Hollywood that the big boys are coming in and they're saying, okay, we want to control this and we don't want certain people to have a voice about certain things. That's already starting to happen.
Wow.
Wow. I think okay, there's a couple different threads I want to pull on. The first we have to come back about who controls the platform. But before we get to that, I wanted to go back to the kind of the pushback that we see. And it's I love that you mentioned Tija, your experience with that because I think some of the pushback comes from people that aren't creating, but that aren't creators that know the process of actively trying to make stuff and through the creative and exploration process of making a film or making art before you get to the final work there is so much that you do before anybody gets to see it and they don't see that but I also think part of the reason why there's this argument around you know and it does have some merit to some degree. I when people say, "Oh, you're stealing other people's work," well, as an artist, teacher, you didn't steal anybody's work. Before you got access to these platforms, the tech company hoovered up everything and they built their thing. So why is it an issue now when the artist is saying, "Oh, this is a great tool. I'm going to use it to explore art." Now it's an issue. Like, are we going to go after the tech platform and say, hey, uh, we should get some money for that because you hoovered up everything. We see that you made a great thing, but are you going to compensate? So I think the kind of like vitriol that some artists get around this stuff can be a little bit misdirected. But Tisha, what are your thoughts in terms of like uh, when you get that critique, in particular from other filmmakers? Like, how do you handle that?
I mean, it's so interesting because it's like you still have to have some sort of a creative brain to do it on a certain level. Like I can see because I'm informed on the different styles of AI and trends because there's now trends in AI, especially like, when people make faceless pages and it's just like just random AI stuff. Like, there's a whole culture here now, and if you are actually in it, you kinda know the difference. The average person really doesn't, so I don't really take it personal. But, like, just to give a personal story, recently, I did this whole 3D animation for a song I released, I didn't have a budget to hire an actual animator, but I've always had an interest in animation and, like, have even took animation courses and classes, so I understand somewhat of, like, a basic level of animation. Um but, like, I was able to get a 3D character design, and actually it took me some time to get the characters to look like how I wanted them to look, So I had to actually get real images of what I was referencing, like, which was myself and my collaborators, and then continuing the prompt and get it right, and then I had to take those images that I did get from the, AI image maker, which was, Dolly 3, and put those in Photoshop, edit them even more because I might like, "Oh, I don't like the hand." So I'm actually using now the AI that's built into Photoshop to actually further develop the image even more. Then I take that and put it into like apps like Kling or Minimax, Halua, Runway, and test out which ones are giving me the best generations in translating in a video. So then I do all that, then take it to Final Cut and actually have to physically edit sound, audio, color grade. Then it's ready to get put out, right? So I put it out and then someone comes and says like, "AI, this is trash, like you should have hired a real 3D animator type thing." Then I went to that person's page, quote unquote, calls himself a real illustrator, and their work was trash. I'm like, "You probably could benefit from actually using some AI tools," to be quite honest. And it made me mad. I literally replied, "A real artist did make this. By the way, your art's trash, and, you should, like, probably expand a little bit because what you're doing ain't it, baby. Like, you it's not gonna get you booked. It's not gonna make you no money doing it that way. It looks bad, like, and you're talking to a person who actually has a bachelor's degree in fine arts, so, like, I understand exactly the elements, but, I try not to take it personal because I do understand, like, people being flooded by a lot of imagery in different spaces. So it's like you can't really you gotta take it with a grain of salt, But I know the people who are really like in the space and like you're watching as things change. Every day is new things. And I told myself, like, I want to be ahead of the curve. I see how fast this thing has grown in the past 6 months. And I just was like, I wanna be one of the people can go to, when this thing really, like as it's now entering, like you said, they're using it in Netflix films and mainstream movies now. So, I feel like my whole opinion on it is I can't take it personal when people feel like, "Oh, AI is this," because a lot of people are just scared of what they don't know. But you should be more scared of people like Elon Musk, to be quite honest. Like,
Always.
you should be more scared of someone whose like net worth is 400 billion plus, and you're still trying to rub two pennies together to go get a soda from the corner store, and you still can't get your short film that only cost you like $20,000 to film. You're out here begging to get to festivals and doing things. We're like out here trying to do our best, greatest work, and we got somebody whose net worth is $400 billion who could literally stop poverty tomorrow. Like, those are the things people should be afraid of, not a computer, because there's still people behind the machine that are, like you say, they're taking over the landscape. And I have to personally speak as a person of color. We've always been disadvantaged when it came to technology and just a lot of things that we didn't grow up with the privilege to understand. So it always feels like we are years behind of the developments of something. And this year I just told myself like I'm going to get my piece of the American pie while I can. Because if we're going to live in the world we're living in where we really don't have a lot of say so now, like there's things that are just out of our control, like you can either be empowered by it or you can let it take you over. So I just was like, where can I find my happiness and peace in the work that I'm doing? AI has really, really made me reconnect actually with my art side. Cause like you ever like sit down and you start something and you're just not happy with the output and your idea or you have a creative block and it's just not hitting. It's like a dopamine hit when you put that prompt in and then you get something and then you're able to like refine it. It's still a process. And that's what I don't think the everyday person understands. It's still a process to it, you know?
Yeah. Alex, I haven't heard you in a while. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Elon Musk is a Nazi. Um,
That part.
if he were to, you know, step on a rake and get a infection and die slowly of a horrible bacterial infection, I think everyone would laugh, and maybe that's not the best type of way to live your life.
Right.
Um, on Elon buying OpenAI, listen, I mean, OpenAI is not open. That's a joke. It was called that in the first place, but it is closed AI. It is owned by another mega billionaire who wants to see you become a subservient, being. The man's talking about the necessity of restructuring society once his machine dominates the world. Sam Altman's just as evil. There was a whistleblower at OpenAI. I don't know if you heard about this, but was found mysteriously suicided himself. But if you see
I
the
did
crime
hear
scene,
about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
look at those crime scene photos, and you tell me how that suicide went down. There's blood everywhere. He had half his meal sitting on his desk. Suddenly decided halfway through his meal, I guess it's time to kill myself. And there's like blood in one room, blood in another room. The everything on the kitchen table was knocked over. Like there, and anyway, whether he killed himself or the whistleblower was killed, the point is like, this is evil empire shit. But aside from all that, I'm with you on so much of it. I get the usage of it. I get supremely annoyed by people online coming and pissing on us little folks for using AI tools. Yet I don't hear anybody talking about like gigantic Hollywood outfits using it every single day in their 200, $300 million movies. Yet the brutalist that scrapes by and makes their movie for $6 million, suddenly they have a bunch of online trolls campaigning against them winning an Oscar, or even being nominated just because they use some AI vocal tool. People don't understand the way these tools work. They are tools for artists. They make the job a lot easier than it used to be. Tedium can be replaced with creative expression, especially for us little folks.
Well,
Um,
and not to interrupt you, but yeah,
yeah,
that's
please.
that's beautifully said. And I think back whenever I hear these discussions about AI, I think back to about 5 or 6 years ago, definitely before the pandemic. And I'm sure teacher can relate to this, having a film on Tubi. 6 years ago, if you made a feature film and you wanted to get it out there, you had to go to an aggregator like Bitmax or Film Hub or one of these. And at that time, you could get your film on Prime, and they were paying like 10 cents a minute. Okay. So, and that's like $9 per view, and that could add up if you get 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 views. Well, fast forward to today, Amazon Prime is now paying half a penny per hour. And you see, that's the danger of hooking up with these services and being beholden to them, even with AI or, distributing your film. It doesn't matter what the platform is. These guys or these people are in business, and they could be selling shoes or candy. It doesn't matter. The paradigm is the same. It's like get as much money as they can, with by luring you in with low prices. And then when they have a bunch of people wanting it, like people are doing with AI right now, they jack the prices up. And that's what's happening. And the net effect is that it's going to squeeze out a lot of people. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second and speak to the issue of the people in the film industry, the worker bees, the grips, the gaffers, the makeup people, who are really going to be affected by this at a very basic level. Because if you work with AI at all, as I have and as Tedra has, you can absolutely see the quality level just exponentially leaping forward. And a lot of those people are going to lose their jobs. There's no question about it. My attitude is, okay, I've been in this business a long time, longer probably than any of you. And I have been through so many technological changes. And at every turn, people lose their jobs. They always do. That people get hurt. And they're just we're working with computers. When I first started working in the industry, we were cutting film on a Steam Deck. Nobody does that anymore. And those people who were really good at that, some of them made the transition, some of them didn't. And that's just kind of the way technology goes. It's not that I don't have empathy for those people and what they're about to be facing, because it's probably coming the next year or two. But we're just at that inflection point, especially with what's happened this past week with Elon Musk and all these people jumping in. This shit's getting real. It's really getting real. So I hate to sound callous, but we're really at the point where it's adapt or die. And I think a lot of filmmakers are either too scared or they're getting on their high horse about, oh, you're stealing my work and all this, and not understanding that this is a freight train and it's moving really fast.
So the question is like, okay, we can use AI to make our stuff easier, right? Which democratizes the medium in some way. But what about getting it seen? What about distribution? What about taking back those means, getting it off Amazon? I don't know, prompting some new way to monetize.
Well, no, I don't think that's well, I I don't think prompting your way out of it is actually going to work. It's
Can
a nice
AI save
idea.
us?
It's a nice idea. My personal opinion is this, that there's a human component to the film industry no matter what happens. And part of that is distribution. It's getting it in front of other people, building audiences, letting people know about your work and about you. And I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see filmmakers like me and other filmmakers starting their own platforms, their own like mini Amazons or mini Netflixes. Get a server. They're not that expensive. And, put your films on there. We used to have Vimeo, but Vimeo got taken over by some
Yeah, they
asshole
sold out.
who just, yeah,
Yup.
screwed everybody. Yeah.
Oh, I hate
And
them, yeah.
YouTube is great, but it's YouTube, and in 6 months, they're going to change their policies and screw you even more. So we have to get our own servers, put our own work on there. The trick is, of course, finding eyeballs, finding people to see your work. And there are ways to do that. I mean, there's SEO, there's all kinds of ways to get people out there. But I think um, here's the other thing. We talked at the beginning of this conversation about storytelling. I think most of the stuff I see that's being done with AI is mimicking Hollywood. I see a lot of Batman shit, a lot of MCU, a lot of, people putting their faces on Tom Cruise and making a Mission Impossible short. I mean, it's shit. It's garbage. And that's what most people, are going to be using AI for, even the talented ones. The people who will break through are the people who can tell stories. And that's a skill, that's an art, that's a human thing that will never go away. But those people, in my opinion, will really rise to the top. They may not be household names, but they'll make a living and they'll have long careers. And for me, I mean, that's always been my goal, because I knew from the beginning this business, especially for a Black man, is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. You have to take control of your work and your voice and find a way to do it outside of the system. You have two choices. You can work for them, or you can work for you. And those are your only two choices. And if you decide to do one, you probably will not be able to do the other. I made the decision to work for me from almost from the beginning. I've had day jobs, I've worked for corporations, but it was never, okay, I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life and retire. It was never that because that doesn't work for Black people. Not really, not in this country, not in this industry. So I think even if you're not a person of color, you're a woman or you're, anybody, white guy, you still have to think outside the box. It's tough for everybody. It's not just for Black people, it's tough for everybody. So if you're in India, you're a filmmaker, you have to really think outside the box, and AI can help you at the level of creating. It won't solve the distribution problem, in my opinion, but it can solve a lot of the production problem.
Tija, I wanted to bounce to you because I know you have a lot that you've gone through working in this industry and learning in this industry. So I wanted to actually speak to a little bit of what John just talked about because I know you've experienced a lot of this stuff firsthand.
Yeah, I think John just hit on so many points. And for me especially, I'm like self-taught all the way with filmmaking. My first film was distributed on Netflix, and that was my first film ever, like period. I actually edited it. I didn't know what a colorist was, so I color graded I learned color grading myself. I did the entire sound design. Just everything you're hearing is like from my mind to the screen, and then even the soundtrack. I worked with a friend of mine, and we produced an all original soundtrack where we worked with musicians. And at that time, AI wasn't even pumping. This was like 2018. Well, actually, I started around 2016, so it wasn't like what it was now. So you really had to get in there and make it happen. But I can just relate to so many things that John is saying because that was my entry point to the film industry. Prior to the film industry, I'm a music artist, so I had seen similarities between creating music, releasing music as an independent artist, and music walked me into filmmaking, and that's how I was able to connect those worlds because my music was getting synced and licensed on television and film. So when I was introduced to just I call it the Hollywood way. And what I mean by that is there's a system that's there and it's been there for years, and you have some people who are still operating in that same system, and then you have these like the middle where it's like they know both sides, so they know kind of how to operate in the system, but they're also being progressive and trying to change things. And then you have people like me who came in just kind of raw dogging it, like I don't know nothing about this world. What's a general meeting? What's a pitch meeting? Like, I didn't know the language, So when I was early on getting into having these meetings, I would have great ideas, but people didn't have the confidence in me as a director to handle a large budget or a large product, even though my first film made it to Netflix. And instead of seeing how a person who knew nothing could actually get a DIY grassroots funded film to Netflix and garner the attention of someone like Issa Rae to even come on and put their name on it as a producer and do all these things, instead of looking at that approach and how this person did that, it was on the surface like, well, who is she? Who is she associated with? What are her credits? She's a little bit green, all because I didn't know the actual language that people spoke in these general meetings I was having. I was just thrown into the lines then. So for me, I do think that where we are now, it is time to just be innovative and go back to what John was saying. What makes you stand out is your creativity, is your story. Like you can give two people a paintbrush and a palette and tell them, and they could both be highly skilled, but who's gonna make the better painting is kind of subjective to who the audience is and what your story is. So one of the things I even thought about with AI was this intersection of the art world and AI. So even when I'm making my AI, I've been able to tell a story through using AI imagery and AI video. But then I also thought, what if I were to take these same images and create 3D installations and art galleries with them. So I've found just these different ways that I would like to explore AI beyond even just filmmaking. And I think that it could be really cool. Like I have this project I call the Screamers, and it was focused around these like black blow up dolls, inflatable dolls that basically are the voices that have been trapped from assault survivors. So it's like a short 60-second, but yeah, I feel powerful AI video piece. But the art in it is that if I wanted to convey this outside of just filmmaking, where I wanted to cross over to the art world, I now have the ability to create an immersive experience where I'm now able to project the visuals that I created, but also maybe bring them into a more three-dimensional space by actually creating and getting this manufactured. So there is a real element to it also that people can touch and feel. So I totally agree with what John is saying. And I appreciate John sharing all this information because it's good to hear from people who have really been in this business for a while, you know what I mean? And I was when I did the Netflix thing, I was just thrown out there and yeah, I had this like direct link to, you know, networks and different people, but I wasn't really being developed. Like I wasn't being told like, you know, my ideas that I had were not being taken and nurtured, you know, because most people are just looking for something they can sell, pitch, and get acquired quickly, you know, because if you're not making the machine money, then you're more than likely gonna get dropped by your agent, you're gonna get dropped by your manager. They're not thinking about the process it takes to make something that feels real and timeless and good and, like, of quality. They're thinking about the lapse and, like, how to stay relevant, I feel often. So, I had to learn that lesson, and that's where I'm at now. Now I understand, but I also don't feel like I have to compromise my integrity to, be lit or be be relevant to a world that to me is quite lost in a sense of, like, where the art is in this. So, I'm excited because AI is stirring the pot, um, and you do have to evolve, and you do have to start thinking about what type of jobs you can transfer to if you are a DP, if you are a colorist, if you are a person that is a part of crew and stuff, you have to start thinking about, well, what are gonna be the new jobs can be that you can transition to while still, you know, maintaining your skill sets, right? And that's just the way life is, I feel like the jobs that were available in 1970 and 1980 have changed. Look at the computers. Like, whenever I watch a decade piece, I'm like, man, like there's a show, just not to hop off topic, but there's a show called Fallout on Amazon. I don't know if anyone's seen it.
Yeah.
I
I
encourage
know
y'all
the
to
video game.
Fallout because it's a great example. When I'm watching Fallout, it's like, what where are we at in time, right? Because yeah, we're seeing something that's like post-apocalyptic, but at the same time, it's like everything is it's futuristic and dystopian looking, but at the same time, it's like barbaric. So it's like, has the world restarted itself over and over again? Like where we're at right now, if the world blows up right now, are people gonna have robots or are they gonna be watching those big box wooden TVs again? So it's like, I feel like sometimes we're just in this like simulated space and I just try to be present and appreciate where things are going and what role how can I make the world around me and the art around me make sense for me and get these stories out. But I do think and agree with John, like you have to still have some level of creativity, you know, to be impactful, you know, to have a sustainable career. Like I'm not here for the sprint, you know, I'm here for the marathon in that this is a career that I've committed my life work to now. Being a director, being able to like jump in and out of different spaces, whether it's unscripted or scripted, and just learning the process as much as possible. So yeah, it's a lot when you really start thinking about the layers to it. But
I had I had some really good mentors when I was coming up. Um, and I tell you this too, the every I've had a lot of breaks in this industry, and every single major break, everyone has been through a Black person or a woman. They're the ones who opened the doors for me. Now, once I got in, I worked with white guys, I worked with anybody. Okay, but getting in and staying in is really hard in this business. And it's still, no matter what technology you're using, it's still a relationship business. It always has been, it always will be. And the relationships will change around the technology. But, people, I got into this business because I like the people in the business. I like cameras too. I like all that stuff. But it's the relationships that have really been um, just fascinating and inspiring. And I'm so, it's nice to hear Tedra, a Black woman, had this level of success. The mentors who taught me couldn't would could not have dreamed of making a film that got on Netflix. It was like so beyond their um their access. S- So I mean, we've come a long way, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah. I think that man, there's so much there in terms of like finding the opportunities there. And when you get your breakthrough, how do you maintain?
Mhm.
And we were talking about in a separate recording, Alex and I, we were talking about like um, how when you make your big break as an artist, or even at the filmmakers that are working at the highest level, even at the highest level, they'll say, this is such a tough industry. Like it's so hard to crack it in this industry. And whether it's because of the economics of it, whether it's because of the culture of it, even when you quote unquote make it, to stay at that level, you have to make all these, you know, sacrifices. Sometimes they're ethical sacrifices, sometimes it's your integrity, sometimes it's just as an artist, you feel like, oh man, I'm making this stuff and I'm successful, but I'm not making the stuff that I want to make. How do you guys think that AI will change that? Do you think that it will be a tool to give artists and filmmakers flexibility to kind of push against that culture? Or do you think we'll be subsumed by the structures that be that has been, you know, here for decades in this industry and in art?
I don't think AI alone will do that. I've always felt that this is an industry. This is an industry unlike any other. This is not like going to too many filmmakers, I think of this like a job. This is not a job. This is a calling. It really is. And, most jobs are I go in, I do my work, I get a check, I do something good, I get a bigger check. That's how most of the world operates. That's not how the film industry operates. This industry favors the bold. And so, in 10 years, it could be something else besides AI. Um, it favors people. It doesn't favor the uh, the technology per se. It favors the people who, the artists who are unafraid to embrace new technology, if that makes sense. So the technology is cool. It's great. I love technology. I love new cameras and new editing systems, and I love AI. But it's if you replace that with your basic humanity, you'll never make it in this business. This business is about being a badass. It's about being a badass, taking 20,000 no's to get 10 yeses, and just saying, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway. That's how you make it in this business. That's what you do. And whether you're working with an CP16 film camera or cling, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I believe the landscape is evolving, and I believe that there's this word, you get when you're like creating something. It's called feedback, right? So I did this, I have a script, right? So I sent it out to a couple people. And I find it so interesting that and these are like some of my like reputable contacts that I respect. Some people are producers, some people are writers who've worked on different projects. And so I send them this short out and I'm waiting for feedback. So one person gives me feedback and they say, "Wow, this is great." So I just want to compare this a thought. You have an idea, you create it. You go get it out to get feedback. And a lot of times the feedback that comes is actually to change your idea. Let's say you wanna make a short film, so the
It's very
feedback is,
true.
"Have you ever thought about making it an episodic?" Or
Yeah.
the feedback might be, "Don't put this in it because it's not this like, you should do it this way because that didn't work for
Oh
us,
god.
when we tried it that way." So
Yeah.
Oh,
and
Ugh.
even now going back to the Netflix conversation before when I was in my grant program working on the film that got to Netflix, the feedback I got there was, "Do you think you need a second editor?" Or, "Don't be upset if your film never gets to Netflix. It's just normal for, you not to make any money back." And the exact opposite thing happened, right? I ended up actually recouping everything. My investors made their money back and a return on the investment. So everything that kind of was programmed into me from other people's experiences could have easily influenced me to pivot and do things that were kind of like going against the grain that I've already initially the track that I was on. So you got to be so mindful of feedback because like I said, the first thing they're like, try episodic, try this instead of just kind of honing in and helping you develop your idea of what it is that you're trying to do. They try to like sometimes move you into a different direction based on going back to what I said earlier, sales. What's selling in the industry? What's the market want? Right now, if the market wants episodic comedies and rom-coms and things like that, and I'm a director who wants to do narratives and stuff, if I'm with an agent and I push back a little bit, that might not work for me because they're gonna drop me and be like, this is where we are thriving in episodic. If you ain't got episodics, holler at us when you do. So, I find it interesting in the feedback space because then it's like for me as a director now, writer, I have to really like go back to talking to my inner voice and being like, what are you trying to do? Yes, if I do it and modify it for this person because that's maybe their taste level, it'll work for that. Or if I do it and modify it for that person who would rather receive this information through episodic, then it'll work for them. But what is exactly that you're trying to do? So I have to always remember to go back to that inner voice. And, I definitely see the landscape changing, but I see like we're like in a direct to consumer space also. So the more you build up your profile in the way that you can do, and you usually do that by creating unique things that go viral, things that are like gonna catch people off guard too sometimes. Like, and so I found my path was like going into spaces where I feel this I've always been passionate about, but that are not occupied and really just kind of like building there. Like I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Actually, I would like to develop the ideas that I actually have because I don't really see it. I don't really see these things taking place in the larger landscape of I call it Hollywood because that's just the way that's what I know, like, me being from Florida and then living in Baltimore City, like, the industry is like this big it's like Oz to us. It's like it wasn't a real thing until I lived in LA, I didn't understand it, so I call it Hollywood is like Oz, and everybody's trying to get to Oz, but they don't realize on that yellow brick road, you're gonna run into all these different characters on your hero's journey where you're trying to like get to Oz and just thinking that you get to Oz and you're going to get the answers when in reality it's not always like that. So you definitely have to always remember, the why and the cause of why you want to do something and talk to that inner voice because the feedback is going to come and it could really throw you off your path if you're not careful So, like, there's a saying where they say, eat the meat and don't eat the fat on the bone. So, like, just know where you gotta take the feedback and use it when it's helpful, but also don't lose yourself in it. Don't lose yourself because you're just trying to, like, get that next big deal. Like, just remember, just going back to what you said about, compromising and doing things that you may not wanna do to keep up and uphold some reputation that ultimately is gonna lead you in the same place, because once the industry changes again, you're gonna have to restructure again and figure out what people want again. So just always knowing that things are gonna evolve and change.
I think that it's one thing independent filmmakers should begin to, if they haven't already, begin to realize is that we have the power. And that's something that, a lot of us don't have that confidence of understanding that we are the artists. We're the ones who create. We're the ones whose work is needed by distributors and studios and so forth. And I think we have to just take charge of our own vision and what we want to do. There's a really interesting story about Sora. Sora was the very first AI platform like 2 years ago. And you guys remember this, all of you. I know you do. When Sora was first released, they had this shot of this Asian woman walking down the street, totally photorealistic. They had the shot of a guy in the snow covered valley, and he was wearing a parka. And it was like, oh my God, you could see the pores in his face, and the movement was natural. It just absolutely floored people. Well, Sora said, okay, independent filmmakers are really going to love this. And you know what they did? They said, fuck you, independent filmmakers. We're going to go to Hollywood. So they went to Hollywood and they said, we're going to sell this app to Hollywood studios. Well, they went to Hollywood uh, a year ago, and Hollywood said, oh, yeah, this is interesting. I think we may want to use this for movies. Well, the unions in Hollywood stepped in and said, oh, no, you don't. And
Mhm.
so Hollywood backed off. And Hollywood was like, okay, well, thanks, Sora, but no thanks. The other thing Hollywood realized was that you can't just press a button and make a movie. You still, like Teacher has said, you still have to do post production, pre production, storyboards, all the shit that you have to do to make a movie. You still have to do it, but certain parts of it are easier. Well, guess what happened? 2 months ago, Soren comes back like, oh, mea culpa, independence, please. We're going to release our Sora model to you guys, and we hope you embrace it. And please, use our model. Well, independents were like, well, fuck you. We have Cling, we have Runway, we have this, we have that. We had like, you know, half a dozen models
Yeah.
that are high end that are better than Sora. We can
Yep.
sign up for $30 a month, and who the fuck needs Sora? So that's what I mean by independent filmmakers having power. And AI really, really gives you that power. I mean, if you have a decent machine and you understand how to load these apps onto your machine, and that's the key, you got to keep it like in house. Don't jump all over these services and throw money at them. But if you learn enough of this to keep it in house, and I'll admit the learning curve can be pretty high. But if you can do that, you can really, really control your destiny. And if you can control production, if you can make a movie in 3 months, script to screen, instead of 3 years, and the the world
Yes.
is your oyster. You don't need to chase distributors and bang on studio doors and, pitch deck this and pitch that. And it's like, screw that. Just make your movie. That's my attitude. That's where I'm headed.
I love
So,
that.
yeah.
The other thing about it too that bothered me with Sora was, like, when I'm a, filmmaker who takes the art very seriously, and even my approach to AI is like, I'm learning it, I'm taking and investing in courses and stuff like that. I felt some type of way when you, like, are a filmmaker, and if you let's say you're not, like, a huge AI artist, influencer person that has this big social media following, and you can't even get access to some of these, apps, like, I think VO2 and Sora, like, I think I would be great. I would love to have access to VO2, but there's, like, a wait list, and then a lot of the people that I do see using it that I DM and talk to who are, like, AI artists that have, like, crazy following on Instagram and stuff like that, they have access to VO, and, I know these companies are looking at that and using these people to kinda help push their product out, but I just sometimes I feel like it's kinda unfair because you have somebody like me, like, I will bust that baby open, like,
Yeah.
if I had
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
opportunity,
Yeah.
but by the time it then gets to me and gets for me to be able to use, it's already, like, open to everyone. But I just think I don't know what that is, but it makes me feel a way. It's like, why not just give people if I wanna pay for my subscription and use the software, don't be promoting it and I can't access it, and I'm a filmmaker, and I wanna be able to access it, so I don't know if they need to set something up where it's more direct, you can reach out to the company and say, "Hey, I'm a filmmaker, like, I would like to use this software in my, practice."
As you know, you have to hop on Hugging Face or GitHub or one of these and search for it. And if like I mentioned before, you have to have a really powerful computer to use VO or Hunyun or some of these other models. It takes a lot of VRAM, but if you can do that, that's probably the best way to do it. But it's like we talked about earlier. These companies don't want you to. The VO, that's what Google or
Yeah,
I can't
Google.
Google,
Mhm.
yeah. They don't want you to
Yeah.
have it. They're doing what Sora did 2 years ago. They're saying, "No, no,
Right.
we'll dole it out to whoever we feel like doling it out to and screw everybody else." And, the other problem, as we talked about earlier, is that, okay, you can use VO2, but you can't put any politics in there. You can't diss Trump. You can't say this or you can't do that. It's like, well, what's the point? If you're an independent artist. I don't care how fantastic your platform is. I'll find some other platform that'll let me do my art. It may not look as good as yours, but I'm going to say what I want to say. And you know what? Over time, the quality is still going to improve enough for me to compete with you.
Yeah. And I also think it's concept over quality sometimes too. Like I used Kling and I got these really kind of political images. Like I was able to create through their elements feature. I was able to take a MAGA hat and I did a bunch of MAGA hats and I put my caption, "I never liked these funky little hats," and I had it burning the hats, but then I, like, cut it up with, like, the Trump Madison Square Garden rally where the little girls were singing. It looked like a real life horror film, like and I had just started doing these just, like, short political commentary pieces, but I, like, turn off my comments because it forces people to just watch it. So whatever side of the aisle you're on, these are just things that I'm illustrating through what I'm seeing in the news. It doesn't necessarily represent all of my views and everything like that, but as an artist, Kling has really been great for me to, like, create things very real time as they're happening and push my creative and still it may not give me the perfect render, but I'm able to edit it, tweak it, add, like, these little cool special effects to it, and you get the message, and it also creates the energy when people do come and see what I'm doing, they're like, "Oh, this girl really is thinking out the box and doing some
Yeah.
crazy shit over here," like
Hmm.
and that's what I want. I told myself I'm not holding back anymore because like, I tried that route. I
Yeah.
tried that route
I love
of
that.
just listening to what everybody wants me to do and how you gotta walk around in Hollywood and how you gotta, show up. And it left me without a manager. And like, I don't know. It just seemed like I think now is the time to, like you said, just go be bold, and just it's boring to me. Like right now, Hollywood's a little boring. We need to like shake it up and do the things that really serve us in a way where we are adding to the landscape, the creativity. You know what I mean? I think that's where I'm at right now with it.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that because I did graduate work in Hollywood. I went to the AFI, which is like mega Hollywood. I mean, people come out of there and they're like doing all these huge movies and all this shit. Not me, but there's a group of us at the AFI was divided into two groups. One was a group of people that grew up in Beverly Hills and their dads were winning Oscars. And then there was this other group, which I was in, people who just were good filmmakers, but we didn't have the connections, but we wanted to learn narrative filmmaking. So I go out to AFI, and one of the first things they said on like the first day I was there was, forget filmmaking and art and all that stuff. Keep your personal life in order. That's the number one thing you have to do to be a success. It wasn't about, you know, cameras and all this stuff that I thought it would be. It was about very human things. And the thing I learned in Hollywood, ironically, is that it's more important to tell your story than it is to be a part of the Hollywood system. And that's what I learned in Hollywood. And that inspired me to actually come back to Texas and make my films here. So you have to find a place that inspires you, that you feel connected to. For me, that place is Texas. You have to do stories that will speak to a community of some kind. And, that's your success. Your success is not based on whether HBO loves you or not. That's
Right.
not really your success in this business,
Mm.
in my opinion.
Yeah. That's so that's such a great piece of advice. And I think a lot of emergent filmmakers would do well to take that advice. It's not all about chasing Hollywood, that amorphous Hollywood. You have to figure out the best way to tell your story. Man, this is such a great discussion. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up. Before we do, Alex, do you have some summarizing thoughts that you want to share with the group?
My brain is so overloaded. That was an incredible discussion. I have a million questions and thoughts. What I really love is the idea of throwing away all the studio notes, all the bullshit, all the people trying to put you in a box only to judge you for not fitting in that box in the way they imagine because they have no imaginations, and using any tools at our disposal by any means necessary to make our visions come true, and being revolutionary about them, saying fuck it, and being incendiary and fighting and being truthful and personal. um, it's the only way we're gonna survive in this tumultuous industry. So I'm incredibly inspired by the both of you, and your stories and what you're pushing forth with. Like, I'm emboldened to go and rethink some of my own strategies. I want to thank you too for bringing that energy to this space today. It's been really terrific.
My
Um,
pleasure.
Thank
yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
and what you said about not chasing trends, right? Because we try to chase a trend, by the time we release it, it's yesterday's papers. Um, so you really just got to do your own thing. So then the powers that be say, tell other people to do something like you did, because that's the new hot thing. And whether it's using AI or crayons and stick figures, I think getting your message out there clear and undiluted is the most important thing we can do, because it's our voices, it's our souls shining through, and anything in the way is a problem. And anything that helps us tell those stories is our solution. So thank you.
Wow. Alex, you really just hit the nail on the head with that one, man. I'm loving it. Uh, John, Tija, where can we find you and follow your work? Why don't we start with you, John?
You could go to carstarfilm.com. That's CARSTAR film.com.
Tija?
You can check me out on all social media, especially Instagram at TT the Artist, TTTHEARTIST, and TTTheartist.com.
And Alex.
Oh, Instagram, Alex Bergman. YouTube here at Cinema Saloon. And that's really it.
All right. So if you're watching this, follow John, follow Tija. Of course, follow Alex as well. You heard all the genius we just listened to. You're not going to get that anywhere else. So follow us, like, subscribe. Cinema Revolution. You just met a couple revolutionaries right here telling us
Yeah.
how they're breaking through, how they're making their own way, how they're, in my opinion, y'all are tearing down Hollywood with some of these ideas. So we want to see that continue to happen. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for sharing all this wisdom and genius. And folks, you got to catch on. You can't wait for the train. You got to help. You got to make your own damn train. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.
Viva Revolution!